This video is about determination of exchange rates. It's theory, but it's to give you some idea of what is behind the economics, the study of exchange rate determination. We're going to look at long run first. That's what this file is about. And then we're going to look at short run. The videos are not intended to replace the slides. I hope you will read through the slides. I just want to take a few minutes to highlight them to supplement for a class. The starting point for long-run determination is the idea of the law of one price. And this is an economic observation that if you have markets and you have products in two markets, usually within one country, that people will just go to the other seller if they are willing to sell the same product for less. Of course, there's transportation costs, which economists like to ignore, but that is a major premise of market economies. If we take this one level further and apply it to open economies, markets between two different countries, then should also be a principle about price of goods being the same. An inside country difference is inflation rates. And that's a major economic topic, but it means the general rise in prices. Not just one product, not gas prices going up, but all products in that country have a similar increase in their price. And the result or interpretation of that is that the domestic currency has lost purchasing power because the same dollar, the same euro, the same pound will not buy the same amount of goods and services. So the power to purchase goods and services has been diminished by inflation. And this should have an impact when one is trying to compare the products, the baskets of goods and services that a country citizen can buy once they try to convert their currency to another currency. And the major conclusion is that if you have higher inflation rate, or you have inflation and the other country has no inflation, then the ability of your currency to buy foreign goods should also reflect that. It should, if inflation is higher rates, prices across everything, it turns out that's also going to include the price of other goods, at the price of other currencies. And if you recall, the pound price of the dollar going up is a depreciation of the pound. The euro price of the dollar going up is a depreciation. So this is basically to say that if you have inflation in England or in France, that's either compared to zero inflation in the US, or say 2% in US and it's 3% in Britain, then you want to adjust what their currency will buy, because from the point of view of the seller of the goods, they're going to want to convert back. They want to be paid what they would be paid by an American, so they require the British pound price to be higher. And that's exactly what this slide is trying to show us. And this is a particularly important one. This is slide 5. And this little phrase explanation at the bottom is very useful for homework, the homeworks, and also for the assignment for this particular section. So if the Japanese inflation is 5% and the US inflation is 2%, then we would expect the yen to depreciate, which would mean the yen price of dollars goes up by the difference. The consequence of that will be the dollar price of the yen will go down, and so we would say that it appreciates by 3%. That's the major concept here, and it's a long-run belief, theory, that underlying what's going on, be behavior that will influence the exchange rate in the long run. The slides in the chapter talk about what things could get in the way of having that long run behavior show up in the exchange rates, and it gives you a graph to show you that it hasn't followed a perfect pattern. It also lends itself to an interesting exercise that was introduced by The Economist magazine. They created a Big Mac index, and there's a video and that you can watch. It's on one of the next slides, the link, and it's also posted as a link in Blackboard. But basically, what it's trying to say is when you convert the pound price of a Big Mac to a dollar price, if that dollar price is higher than what you would pay in New York, based on purchasing power, based on the law of one price, that currency must be overvalued, meaning that you think it has more purchasing power than it should. And the alternative is that when you convert, say, the Chinese RMB price to a dollar price, it's lower than what the American price would be. Then we say their currency is undervalued. And this is a big part of the discussion that's been had in recent years about the Chinese manipulating their currency. Here's a list that kind of shows you some of this information. On this column here, even though it says dollars here, all of these other prices are in the domestic currency. When you use the current market exchange rate and convert those prices to these dollar amounts, so everything in this column is a dollar price, you can compare them to see if they're overvalued or undervalued. The book gives you a percentage overvalued to kind of see how bad things are, if you want to say it that way, or how dramatically different it is. My questions, my emphasis is simply if the local currency price is higher than the US dollar price. So in this case, $6.35 minus $5.06 is going to give you a positive amount. That means that the Swiss franc is overvalued. The calculation here, I've drawn it out so you can see, is intended to emphasize that difference, but then to translate it into a percentage. But if the foreign currency price, when converted to dollars, is greater than $5.06, the US price, this difference, this part of the equation right here, is going to be positive. On the other hand, if it converts to a dollar amount which is less than this amount, when you do this part of the math, it's going to be a negative number because this would be 4.51 minus 5.06. That would be a negative number. So undervalued. And as you can see here, these 3 currencies have positive differences. Therefore, they're labeled as overvalued. And these currencies have a negative difference. If you took each one of these and subtracted $5.06, they'd all give you negative numbers. That makes those currencies undervalued. So what does that mean? It means that it's not unrealistic to say, hey, you're going to Switzerland? Things are more expensive there. What that means is that when you, as someone who has dollars, converts those dollars to buy Swiss francs, so then you can buy goods and services, the power of your dollars to purchase the same thing will be weakened. So their currency is overvalued. If purchasing power parity held, then their currency would adjust to an exchange rate which left the purchasing the same as it was in the price in dollars, the same in both countries. Down here, China, Mexico, we have undervalued currencies, and the consequence of that is people who have dollars who want to buy goods and services will find the same goods and services, in this case considerably cheaper, in China or Mexico. Of course, the criterion of the same goods and services is just assumed here, but in general, this supports the argument that things are cheaper if you can buy them from China. The question is, why doesn't this adjust? Because if the law of one price held, then the dollar should depreciate, the yuan or RMB should appreciate, and you should wind up with the same numbers in this column. And that's the criticism of Chinese manipulation of the exchange rate, that yes, this might be for certain reasons below, but in the long run, it should be moving towards the same price. These are the links to this one is to the video. This is to an article in The Economist, but since The Economist has a paywall, it may be difficult to be able to see that. You can register as a subscriber for 6 articles a month. I'll leave that up to you. And this will help you with both homework 5 and homework, the assignment that I've set up for making up not having class on March 5th.